Well, class, I get the distinct privilege of introducing you to one of my very best friends in the entire world. I spent the last week or so introducing you to him. So let me introduce a little bit more so you get an inside scoop on who you're about to hear from. And ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for also, I think this is 2 years in a row we have an Academy graduate. We had Air Force last year, we have Army this year. But thanks for bearing with me. Colonel Mark Reed is currently serving as the head of the Department of Geography and Environmental Engineering at the United States Military Academy at West Point. As a scholar, he earned both his master's and his doctorate from Penn State University. That's where I first met him in 1999, actually the year 2000, when we were both getting our master's degrees. There he researched climate variability and environmental security, topics that our world desperately needs greater insight on and that many of you are interested in. As a soldier, we'd call him an infantry officer, a foot soldier. I want to let you know, these are the toughest of our warriors. I recall linking up with Mark in Baghdad, Iraq, when we were both majors. It's about halfway through our career. I was in the headquarters unit at the time. Mark was leading a bunch of combat soldiers. He and his troopers had been fighting in the city, hard-fought street-to-street fighting, really trying to bring security to a bunch of neighborhoods where people were basically fighting neighbor. It was frankly terrible, ugly for everybody involved. Yet when Mark pulled up in his Humvee and we had a few minutes, less than half an hour before he had to get back to his troops, I can tell you that despite what he had been going through, the joy of Christ through him just came through in its own unique way. That's the type of man you're going to hear from. He clearly has exercised a wide variety of leadership, and we talk a lot about that here at PCA and what you're about to go do. He served in Germany, the Balkans, and Kuwait. Closer to home, he served in the Old Guard, those iconic soldiers that are best known for standing post at the tomb of the unknown soldier in Arlington. As a follower of Christ, I have seen Mark live an exemplary life. You're going to hear just a little bit about it. Mark is clearly a warrior leader, a man living faith who is trained and educated not only all the tough and rigorous Army schools, but he's also, believe it or not, a graduate of a Marine Corps school, so he's got a little Navy in him, and I don't hold it against him. Today, he leads the geography department at West Point. He teaches them to do a lot of things. One is to lead in a challenging, culturally diverse world, and one that is changing physically as well. He also leads them how to do land navigation, and if you ever need somebody to get you out of a tough mess within a city or in the woods, he's the guy to do it, and he can do it quickly. But more closer to home, I've seen Mark, his wife Jen, and their 4 kids go through a journey in which they've continued to invest in people. Things that you know how to do, you've done it here, and today they do it through a ministry called Young Life that many of you know about. So it is my great joy to introduce you to a man of faith, courage, and service leadership, one who I think you'll recognize the outline of who he is. Please welcome Colonel Mark Reed.
Well, thanks for that too kind introduction, Mike. And thanks for our friendship over the years. And thanks really for this opportunity. Thanks to all of you for the opportunity to be here tonight. Before I get into my remarks, I'd like to do something. I'm going to ask the class of 21 to do something. So you all know full well that you're not here on your own, that there are a lot of people seated behind you, some probably watching online. There's a group of folks back here that were instrumental, all of them instrumental in helping you get to this point. So how about the class of 21, an ovation for all of these folks. Make some eye contact with them and let's give them a huge round of applause for all the help they've given you. Go ahead and stand up and look at them. So again, thank you very much for the invitation, the opportunity to be here with you tonight. I went to middle school in my first year of high school in Orono, Maine, just up the road a few hours, and New England holds a special place in my heart, and it's great to be back up in this beautiful, historic part of our great country. I actually reached out to a mentor of mine, who Mr. Rooney knows as well, for some advice on, I'm doing this commencement speech, any recommendations, and he simply said, I'm not going to tell you what to say, but remember the 3 B's. Some of you may have heard these. Be brief, be inspiring, and be gone. And so I'll do my best on those 3, let you be the judge at the end here. So again, still hoping for some substance to my remarks tonight, I turned to my oldest daughter who graduated from high school 5 years ago. And I said, Sarah, what, do you remember anything, like, who was your graduation speaker? And she said, I don't know, I don't remember. Okay, so, well, do you remember what he or she said, any nuggets? And she looked at me and she shook her head. She said, no, Dad, I'm sorry, I don't. So actually that took some pressure off me. Seriously, it's an honor to be here among a really distinguished group of people at a beautiful campus. I had a chance to look around today. What a remarkable place. But it's really the people, and especially these people, those of you sitting right here that I'm looking at. I'm glad you're right here. This is great. Better than cars. My other daughter graduated in a car last year, and that's the way we had to do it then, but I'm glad we've at least moved forward to this now, and I can look you in the eyes tonight. Your faculty has shared a bit about you over the past week, and I'm impressed. What a talented group. From your artistic achievements in the performing arts and visual arts, including a couple of all-state musicians, a budding composer out there, and some accomplished actors, some tremendous athletes, including some really fast runners. And I understand a very successful women's soccer and men's basketball season this year, in a really strange year to compete in sports. And of course, some excellent scholarly achievements, which I've had the chance to hear about tonight as well. Really with the entire class, continue your education in some form, whether it's apprenticeships or colleges and universities across the country. So truly a diverse and well-rounded class. In addition to these many amazing compliments, each of you will forever look back on your junior and senior year of high school and associate that with this global pandemic. You've gone through things and dealt with challenges that just 2 years ago none of us could have imagined. And collectively, you not only made it through, you've persevered, you've thrived, and you're more resilient in many ways and better prepared for the challenges you're going to face in the years ahead. Well done. For the next few minutes, I'm going to take you to a very different place. When I was younger, I tended to avoid cemeteries. Most people do, especially at your age. Frankly, I didn't really become comfortable in cemeteries until I was a lieutenant serving in the Old Guard. The Old Guard is an infantry regiment stationed in our nation's capital, and among its many duties, it conducts funeral ceremonies for deceased veterans and soldiers in Arlington National Cemetery. Arlington is among the more sacred spaces in our nation, especially in our nation's capital, and I would encourage you to visit Arlington next time you're in Washington, D.C. As soldiers in the Old Guard, we actually used to do physical training runs through the cemetery in the morning before it opened to the public. Arlington, like many cemeteries, is a beautiful place. It's quiet, it's peaceful, it's inspiring. And its most identifiable features are the rows and rows of white headstones. So I want you to picture with me for a moment a headstone. I was just in our cemetery at West Point yesterday, actually. It's where I plan to be buried. I was with a young man. We were talking about courage. Most headstones have a name, perhaps a brief description of some life accomplishments, perhaps a scripture reference. But every headstone has a date of birth, a date of death, and a dash in between. And these 3 items relate to 3 very important questions that all of us should at the very least consider, but really should be able to answer. The birth date correlates to the question, where do I come from? The death date represents the question, what happens to me after I die? And often overlooked is that dash in between, which correlates to the question, why am I here? It's an important question. It's a big question. It can be a daunting question. What is my purpose? Or as I like to say, what's my dash? Many of my cadets back at West Point don't spend much time thinking about these big questions. They're caught up in the busyness of life. I was much the same as a cadet, as a young adult. I graduated from high school in the United Kingdom and headed straight to West Point. I had a plan, but I hadn't really given much thought to my purpose. In fact, it really wasn't until years later, when I was married and Jennifer and I had our first child, Sarah, that I really began to think about my purpose. Of course, having a plan is important. I don't want to diminish that. But I would argue that having a purpose is more important, and our purpose should really drive or inform our plan. Now, some of you have been confronted by death already, either a close friend or a family member, or perhaps a near-death experience yourself. Certainly this pandemic that we're hopefully emerging from has brought the reality of death closer to all of us over the past 18 months, as the disease has contributed to the death of nearly 600,000 of our fellow citizens. I'm a member of a profession that confronts the realities of life and death regularly. Such lived experiences tend to drive you to consider purpose, to consider your dash. So I offer that the first step is to do just that, to consider your dash, your purpose. I find that many adults don't give it any thought, or certainly not the amount of consideration that I think it's due. As I mentioned, that was me in my early adult years. Now, I teach at a secular institution, so the answers to all of these big questions vary widely, depending on background and worldview. After you consider your dash comes what I would say is the harder part, and that's answering the question, what is my dash? What is my purpose? Why am I here? There are many places to seek answers. Some are sound, others not so much. And I'm not here today to help you answer that question, but I do encourage you to spend time on your own and with others you know, trust and love, trying to answer that question. For those who hold a Christian worldview, Scripture offers tremendous insights to help answer the questions. I'm going to share just a couple of those with you. There are many throughout the Bible, and it's amazing that actually two of these three examples I'm going to share with you have been shared by previous speakers here. We did not coordinate that. Some would call that chance. I would call it providential. The Old Testament Micah exhorts us to act justly, love mercy, walk humbly with your God. In the Gospels, when asked what the greatest commandment is, Jesus responds, to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind, and to love your neighbor as yourself. And in his first letter to the Thessalonians, the Apostle Paul commands us to rejoice always, pray without ceasing, and give thanks in all circumstances. In his devotional, Knowing God's Purpose for Your Life, Dr. J.I. Packer offers some great wisdom to help discern God's purpose for each of us. I won't share all of his points, but three really resonate with me. The first, let wisdom judge the best course of action. Don't be a lone ranger. When you think you see God's will, have your perception checked. Draw on the wisdom of those who are wiser than you are. Take advice. A second point Packer makes is be prepared to find God directing you to do something or to something you thought you would not like and teaching you to like it. And third, a third point that I appreciate is never forget that if you make a bad decision, and you will, we all do, it's not the end of everything. God forgives and restores. The Lord is my shepherd. He leads me. What a relief it is to know that. The Bible is full of examples of men and women who strayed from a sound purpose in their lives, but who, by God's grace, were restored. So next time you're passing by a cemetery, consider stopping, taking a walk, maybe by yourself, perhaps with a friend or a family member. As you look around, Admire the peaceful setting. Give thanks for the lives represented by the rows of headstones. Take some time to look at the headstones, the details, the names, the dates, and take a moment to think about the dash and ask yourself again, what's my dash? Congratulations to the class of 2021, to your parents, families, friends, loved ones, your teachers. We're all very proud of you, and I wish you the very best as you graduate and pursue your purpose.